So, you want to be a cosplayer? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of So You Want to Be a Cosplayer. Today's episode is a really special one and very, very cool. While cosplay competitions are not a necessity, they're not even that big of a part of the cosplay community. They are, they do have a size to them. A lot of people do partake in them. A lot of people do have tons of fun in them, as you're about to find out in the episode. However, it's still a part of the cosplay community and a part of the cosplay hobby, and so I wanted to bring this to your attention. In today's episode, I spoke to Avera Cosplay. She is a veteran cosplay competition judge and competitor. With this, she brings a very unique and very special perspective on how to approach cosplay competitions. I never actually participated in one cosplay competition. It was a very small con. I had a lot of fun. I ended up winning, and that's not the only reason it was fun, I promise. And so it was really cool being able to interact and relate to things that I noticed that Vera talked about. And so I hope you really enjoy this one. Please like and follow for more cosplay content. And without further ado, let's jump into the episode. All right, and there we go. I'm hoping the video goes. I think we're live here. Avera Cosplay, how are you doing today?
I'm lovely. Woohoo! Yay. You asked me to talk about my favorite topic, so I'm like totally in. Let's go.
I'm excited to talk about your favorite topic today. For those of you who do not know Avera Cosplay, she is a fantastic fabricator, foam crafter, everything. She just does everything. But more importantly today, we're actually talking about competitions, cosplay competitions. And while cosplay competitions are not a necessity within the cosplay community or within the convention community, the comic convention community, it is quite a large part. And most of the time, people will see either on Instagram, YouTube, or anything like that, highlights from competitions, or at least hear about competitions and who competed and who won and that kind of thing. And so that's why I wanted to bring it on. I asked Avera to come on. I'm going to read straight from her Instagram because I think this is the best way to explain why. So it starts off with 2021 Southern Winter Crown Championships, 2023 FNCC Best Masters Dragon Con, 2022 Best Armor UCC Home-At, and I'm assuming the list goes on. Avera, am I correct?
There's other ones. I've been really lucky to be a part of a lot of contests that are very high level. Even if I wasn't, I walked away empty-handed or whatever, I was still a finalist. So like for BlizzCon and the UCC, which was the Ultimate Online Cosplay Contest, which was a really big thing that went on during COVID. It was like all the big.
I remember that. Oh my goodness, yeah, I totally forgot about that until now.
Yeah, that was kind of like just a really special thing, right? Where we were all like stuck at home, and all of the biggest cosplayers in the world decided to judge people who were really I was really unknown at that time. I was still like just become a master, I think, at Dragon Con the year before. I definitely have been lucky for just being able to be in that experience and be in contests that are at a high level, getting to know people who are way better and more talented than I am, and learning from them, and also running contests, which I really enjoy doing. And judging is probably my favorite thing. I'm definitely a better judge than I actually am a maker, in my opinion, just because I think I bring a very very positive experience. I want to make sure everyone is seen. I want to see their work, make sure that their work is appreciated, they feel appreciated, and they walk away with a really good experience no matter who wins or loses. So it's something that's really close to my heart. It's probably the thing for me that is like my biggest and favorite part of cosplay. But to your point, it is not a necessity. There is no rule that says you have to do it. It takes up a lot of your day at a con usually. And I don't think it's always meant for everybody. There is a certain kind of personality that can deal with that disappointment and deal with putting yourself out there and that rejection that might happen. So, take stock in yourself before you decide to go down that road, I think, is the first thing. There's a lot of people I talk to who are like, I lost, and you could just tell that it wasn't like it was a horrible experience, not because they put themselves on stage and they got cheers and they made friends backstage, but because they lost. So if you can't
Yeah.
separate that, like, don't even get it down that road because you're not going to win every time. And I lose every single costume I have that has won has lost. You know, the one you said
Mm.
from that won the qualifier to be at the Crown Ships of Cosplay at C2E2.
Hmm.
Um, didn't even make it into the second version of UCC and wasn't even a finalist. And I was crying in a closet, right? So, like, you have to, it didn't last long, but I mean, you have to be able to know that it just matters who shows up that day. You know,
Hmm.
sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You have to be able to learn those skills. And if you're just, you know yourself and you know that not that you are going to be able to handle, then be a handler, you know, or just watch the show and enjoy it. But you know, you have to
Hmm.
be honest with yourself too. Um,
Yeah, those fantastic. Obviously,
that's step
I have
one.
only.
And I say this. You can't still, you know, can you work on something for 500 hours and put it
Mhm.
out there and walk away with nothing and still be okay for the rest of the con? Like some people
Well,
can't.
and so what's interesting is when you're saying that is, I went to Weta Workshop once when I went to New Zealand for a few months a few years ago, and
So
I know I want to go back. I want to go back so much. Every time I find a Weta Workshop person on Instagram, I'll follow them and just like I just want to be like soak in what I felt there.
oh my god.
But when I went to the workshop and they were there's like the showcase room that they have. They were talking about one of the process that they do, and I don't remember what they call it, but it's the weathering process. They'll take it out into the back street or to the alleyway and just kick it and just dirty it up, and then they'll enhance kind of what happens to it afterwards. And the
Mhm.
guy was saying that there are actually a lot of people that begin work at Weta Workshop. They get that done and they get to that stage of weathering and they watch their props or their costumes get destroyed and then they quit because they can't handle having to dump 500 hours into a sword and
And
then
have
watch
it
that thing
flat.
get bent in half,
Yeah.
right? And so there is that
Yeah,
special
there is
person,
that. Yeah, like being
Yeah.
able, you know, yeah, and everybody. There's different ways that I recommend to kind of. I latch on to the camaraderie, right? Well,
Mm.
first of all, the
Hmm.
reason that I get on stage to compete is because I'm an attention whore, right? Like I like, that is it. Like that was everyone's like, "What made you get into it?" I'm like, I wanted everybody to see, like, it's like, "Hey, everybody, come look at how awesome I look," right? Like it was literally that simple. But you know, for me, what I latch on to is the backstage camaraderie, the shenanigans, getting to know great makers, getting to learn.
Hmm.
You learn from each other. You're like, you look at somebody, and you're like, "Oh, hey, what'd you do? How did you do that?" You know.
Hmm.
So for me, I know that no matter what happens, I'm going to walk away with a positive experience because I'm going to have that part.
Yeah.
Um, and some people, you know, you just have to find your why and latch onto it, and then it doesn't matter where how you place. But some people, and I'm not judging that. There's some people like my husband cannot compete with me anymore because he just takes it too personally, right?
Mm.
We used to be a and like we lost, and he like had like a little like, and I was like, okay, this isn't for you. But like it's okay, like it's okay to love something and to and to and not saying that no, we all walk away after losing going, thank God I lost. Like everybody wants to win,
Mm.
right? Like most
Yeah.
people backstage are Slytherins, and all of us want to win. Right? We're all very competitive, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you have to be able to like remove yourself from that, and be happy for each other. And then, I compete with people, not against them, right? Like
Hmm.
I walk in and I'm like, they're winning. Like, we all,
Oh my goodness,
oh
yeah.
my God. I'm like, you know, sometimes it just matters who shows up that day, right? Like, so it's one of those things
Yeah.
that's like, you just got to go with it and get something out of it, even if you don't win. And if you just are
Hmm.
a person, especially like the younger, like novices, it's very difficult. That's a hard lesson to learn where you put 300 hours into sewing something you didn't place. you don't understand why. And I think at the novice level, that's the problem, is that they don't understand why, because they
Yeah.
don't have all of the skill sets to understand all the different techniques. And something that
Hmm.
might look surprisingly simple, um, is actually like masterly crafted and tailored.
Yeah.
And they don't have that experience, so they kind of get jaded, I think, and they have a
Hmm.
negative experience. So I think if you
Hmm.
go in there not expecting to win, no matter how many hours you put into it, no matter how much work you put into it, know that you probably won't, right? There's 45
Hmm.
people and 3 awards, right? Um, you just have to kind of be able to really set yourself up and prepare for, what might happen before you even get to the competing part.
No, and yeah, 100%. Years ago before COVID, um, I was going to compete, and I don't even remember what the costume was, to be honest with you. Um, and I remember talking to a friend of mine who was judging. And, he was going to be the judge that year,
Uh-huh.
and I had never competed before. And I just went, "Look, I'm not asking for favoritism, but like, what could help me
Yeah.
get ready for this?" Um, and he said that exact same thing. He goes, go in expecting to lose, and you'll save yourself so much
Yeah.
heartbreak.
It's true.
But B, you also have to understand that you could be the 99th person that the person is seeing out of 100, and the judges could make up their mind on the spot and go, "Oh my goodness, this is the best thing we've seen all day, by far." And at that point, the Mandalorian had just started, and he went, and then person 100 comes in, and it's a dad who dressed in the Mandalorian outfit, and his baby carriage is the little pod, and his kid has Grogu ears. And to be honest, you'll just lose. And like, just
Well,
because it's popular now, and this was, I don't remember if it
well,
was
those are different.
novice or
Yeah,
something like that. It was
yeah.
I don't remember what level it was, but basically it was this. It was very beginning. Like, I
It
had
was a
never won
runway,
anything. I'd never
right?
competed.
So there's three
Yeah,
different kinds of competitions
yeah.
that
Let's jump into that.
let's start there because this is a really good segue.
Yeah.
You were in was probably a runway contest, right? Runway
Hmm.
contests are, usually at smaller cons. They're not going to have pre-registration where you have to submit. It's not a juried selection in order to get into the contest. Usually it's a same day sign up.
Hmm.
Usually, your judges are not going to prejudge you, so you don't go into a room alone with the judges and they look at your work. They're looking at you for the first time, when you walk on stage. Sometimes they might do like a flyby while you're lined up. And then your judges could be anybody, right? Like it could be a celebrity guest. Is sometimes they'll pull in.
Yeah.
It could be,
Hmm.
the cosplay guests that are there. It could be people who have experience in making their own costumes, and it could be people who are more on the modeling side of cosplay. So you never really
Hmm.
know. When I run a runway contest, I tell my judges to look for an overall impression. Right, the person who wins should be the person who everybody's going to leave and be talking about that costume. One of the things with runway is that most of the time you don't have to have made anything. It's usually not a requirement.
Mm.
And usually it doesn't matter, age, all that stuff. Runway costume contests, the person who wins is usually, like you said, this is a perfect, like, it usually is the crowd pop, right? The audience favorite, the cute kid, someone who did make something and it's pretty obvious. The giant bumblebee wins. Somebody who has a moving transition transformation gown, someone on stilts, usually, a group cosplay that's super funny and nostalgic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's a really great way to get started in costume contests to understand
Hmm.
like the stage and walking on the stage and breaking that ice. Um, they're just something where I wouldn't put any stock in a win or a loss in a runway because you
Mm.
don't know who the judges are. It is just kind of a fan crowd, overall impression, popularity. I don't like judging them because I usually put somebody else in them when I'm running the content for a convention because it's just not my speed, right? Like I'm much more of the craftsmanship kind of person.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of people get a bad vibe about competing from runways because
Mm.
it was like, of course, the kid won. It's almost like a Halloween. It's almost like a Halloween contest, right? Like
It
you go
is,
and
yeah.
buy an armor build to a Halloween contest, and you lose to Marge Simpson with a balloon bubble wig, right? Like
Yeah.
every cosplayer has this horror story, right? Or you just you're like, I'm
Hmm.
gonna go to this Halloween contest and rock it. I was like in my fully made Tracer costume. I had
Hmm.
like the wig and the guns, and I had made all the armor, and like lost to Marge Simpson with a bubble wig, right? And like she was
Yeah.
in a bikini. I'm just like, oh, that So it's kind of like it's very similar to that. It's a
Hmm.
good way to go on stage. It's a good way to have fun, and if you've never done a contest, it's a good intro.
I
But
agree, yeah.
they can be very nichey, right? They can be
Hmm.
very again, it's just the overall popularity contest. It's almost like a popularity contest. So the other
Yeah.
kind is a masquerade. I don't do masquerades. I don't compete in them. If you ever want to compete internationally, though, everything in international is usually skit based. Um,
Hmm.
I can recommend K Cosplay is a great U.S. based skit performer. She'll be representing the U.S. I think in Japan this year. She's represented us in North Korea. I think she might have been in the WCS, which is the World Championship of Cosplay in Japan. That is a different art form altogether. Craftsmanship is like I think 20%, and the rest of the score is skit based.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a different world. It's usually very anime. A lot of the anime cons will have
Mm.
a masquerade more or skit based element to their convention. Um, Again, not my jam, but there are a lot of great people out there. Sarah Spaceman's another one who just does amazing skit work, and they have a lot of YouTube stuff. So if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in getting a trip to go abroad or go compete internationally, it usually
Hmm.
has unless it's a part of the Crown Championships of Cosplay. Um, Everything over international skit. So then the other was craftsmanship, which is my baby. That is where that's going to look a little bit different. Usually, you can't sign up the day of. You're going to have to sign up anywhere between a month or something like that prior to the convention, and they'll have a cutoff. Um, they are more mid-sized cons and larger cons just because you have to have enough people to field it, right? You have to have
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah.
So your local library contest probably isn't going to have enough, people who actually make, 90% of their costume. That's going to have rules like a percentage that you have to make your entire costume. Anywhere from like usually like 25 at a smaller con to like 100%, like everything but your shoes and underwear and your wig have to be handmade. And then it also will have prejudging, which is where you come into the room at a scheduled time and the judges have 5 minutes with you to go over your costume. You
Hmm.
talk about how you made it. And usually you have to present documentation called a build book. And you have to
Hmm.
give that to them and then they can flip through it later. And in a costume contest like that, the judge and I can tell you what the judging process is like there. I don't care if you're 9, 2, 1, or 100. We're trying to find the best made costume, right?
Mm.
So um, people will walk in. It is not good. It might not be something that the crowd likes, and this is where a lot of like the animosity between the audience and the judges
Yeah.
recently is because they're like, "What is this? Like, I loved this
I was
gimmick."
gonna say, I think you posted something recently about this,
Yeah, there's
right?
been
Because
a lot.
it was a big build versus I think like a ball gown type
Yeah.
build, and
So
everyone was throwing their hands
it was
up
a big
and.
thing with New York City Comic Con. There was another one in San Francisco Comic Con where like people who are effectively novices, um, competing novices, basically went on rants because they didn't win. Um,
Mm.
they, the judges want to get it right. I don't have any benefit to me to pick it wrong or to get it wrong,
Right,
right? Like,
right.
and as judges, we can usually spot, like we all like kind of check with each other, like, did I get this right? And it's like, yeah, and most of the time there could be like one or two places that I don't get right. Like I watched the Crown Championship and I had like two places flipped, but I'm not in the room. I'm not under the skirt, right? So when you walk into the judging room,
Hmm.
the judges are going to go under the skirt. They're going to go under your armor, right? So most of the time, especially nowadays, the difference between first place, there's like probably 5 or 6 costumes that could at any other con win a best in show. They're
Hmm.
that good of a quality. And so we're literally sitting there trying to see like dings and things that set somebody apart from the herd in order to make sure that we get it right. And when you're at that high level, and a lot of these contests, like New York City Comic Con or MegaCon or C2E2, they don't really, they're master level contests. They're supposed to be designed for the best of the best, but they might have a novice category, or they might not, force you could be a novice and still compete in New York City Comic Con. And that's
Hmm.
kind of where the problem, I think, comes in, because when you don't understand the technical skills of the higher levels, you start to
Yeah.
like make judgments that you're really not qualified to do. No offense. And I've been there. Trust me, I was a novice once, and I was like, I looked over, I was like, that one, like, and then you start to talk to the person, and you realize that they wove their fabric on a loom and use an ancient technique
Yeah.
to dye their fabric, right? So,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
guy went out and was like, my costume should have won. And I could see on stage there were a lot of seams that were exposed. There was a lot of elements that were not handmade, they were just repainted. I was like, okay, but it was big and the audience loved it. Exposed seams at the crown championship level, it's just not gonna, you're not, it's, not saying that costume couldn't win a contest somewhere, but he also lost to somebody who hand beaded her entire gown over the course of 3 years. Like, and it's
Hmm.
flawless, and she went on to win best in the US at C2E2. Like, you just
And
don't know what you don't
yeah.
know. You don't know what you don't know. I don't
No.
want people for that, because I've been a novice too, and I was like, I didn't get it. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. That was so flawless. It's about like, and a lot of times too, it's about like the fit, the movement. It's not a statue contest. So you have something that's really big and it's moving like this. It's a costume contest. There has to be movement. And again, when we wouldn't judge a master and a journeyman and a novice at the same level. I don't expect a
Hmm.
novice to do their own patterns. I don't expect a novice to necessarily have the perfect tailored fit or movement. I don't expect to see like exposed seams, or tattered, glue all over the place, right? But there's allowances for novice, where masters, it's a shirt. It's just a shirt. Like, it's a perfect shirt, right? Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
there's just things
It's
that
it's the difference between like a custom T-shirt and a band T-shirt, where
yeah,
it's like, yes, the band T-shirt works and it fits,
right,
and you can do this and you don't see your tummy.
right,
But the custom shirt that's fit to your shoulders and your chest and your
right,
waist just
yeah.
looks so much better, and it's better made, and that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, for like novices, because most some contests at the craftsmanship contests. Getting back to like explaining like what these contests are,
Yeah.
craftsmanship contests are usually, there's two ways they split you up, right? It's usually armor, sewing, FX, larger than life. Like, they split you up by your medium, or they
I didn't
split you
know
up,
that. Okay.
novice, journeyman, masters, right?
Okay.
So for the one, if you enter a contest, just here's a hint. If you enter a contest that has, it's called a qualifier, and it has a championship at the end,
Hmm.
and it's probably a master level contest. Like, it's probably going to have like really good competitors, right? So
Mm.
immediately, if you see that, like, Fan Expo, Master Cup, the Masters Cup, or the Crown Championship of Cosplay. If you see anything where a craftsmanship contest, here's the things to know if you're getting in pretty deep. One, it's going to have pre-registration, and it's going to basically tell you that not everybody who registers is going to be selected to compete, and that is
Hmm.
something that people don't really know, and sometimes are very shocked by. But there is a jury that will select the competitors.
Hmm.
So if you have 300 people and 45 slots, there is a good chance it's somewhere like MegaCon or somewhere like Toronto, where it's a really, or New York City Comic Con, you might not even get in. So it's an
Hmm.
honor to get
Hmm.
it's an honor to get in, for sure. Two, it's going to have pre-registrations. It's going to talk about prejudging. It's going to require a build book, and it's going to have some percentage that you have to have had made. Um, if you are
handmade.
Sorry. So if you are entering a contest that doesn't have novice, journeyman, and masters, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like armor, sewing, and FX, they are probably expecting you're a master. So
Especially at the and especially at the big
yeah,
cons.
yeah.
Yeah.
If they're asking you how you like, if they're going to put you in armor, whatever, uh, they're probably just assuming you're a master.
There's
So
an expectation that the skill level is at here. And
yeah,
so at this point we have to divide you not by skill level but by genre.
right. We just assume you're a master if you're entering C2E2, right? We
Yeah.
assume if you're entering, the Winter Cup at Holiday Matsuri, Master Con or TwitchCon. That's kind of why they do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say still enter. Heck yeah, because you're going to be around people who are going to elevate you as a competitor and elevate you as a maker
Mm-hmm.
and inspire you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but go in knowing that you're up against people who have been doing this and doing this for a while. So, again, setting those expectations. Now, if you're a novice, and I know that the Masters Cup, the Masters of Cosplay, for the Fan Expo branch, they do have a novice category, right? So that's a really good one because you get into the big top level contest. It's going to be super serious. It's going to have really great competitors in the master level, and you're still in the novice. You're still grouped with people who are going to be at your skill level, so it's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
little less intimidating. Not to say
Mm-hmm.
I've seen novices win, so it's not necessarily I've seen a novice win the whole thing, right? So it's not saying that a
Mm-hmm.
novice can't win. I'm just saying that it's a little less intimidating when you know you're around people who are new to this and you're kind of like going to be around them.
Sure,
So
sure.
yeah, so I mean, it's not scary if you just know what you're getting into, right? I just think a lot of people are like, I want to compete, and then they sign up and they're like, what is this, right? And that's kind of where
Mm,
the illusion comes from. So just understanding like what you're signing up for and what you're going to have
yeah.
to do, and being prepared and kind of doing some research is always going to be helpful because the preparation will take the scariness out of it. That
Yeah,
being said,
that's a yeah.
it's the best thing in the world, though. Like, still, like, do it. Like, seriously, do it. Like, there's so
I
much.
still so most people who are watching realize that I have a cosplay here. I don't normally have a cosplay in my background. The reason why is because this is the cosplay that I won my only competition I ever entered into, and it was a very weird amalgamation. Weird as in how the judging occurred. Not that it was a bad competition. It was actually a very, very good competition. I think it was well organized. There was a good chunk of people. I think maybe 30 people in total who were all judged all together. But it was a combination of there was prejudging, there was a little bit of skit, but you didn't have to. There was craftsmanship, like they did come down and look
Right.
into the armor and go, "How's this made? How's that?
Yep.
Is that Velcro?" Blah blah blah. And but then there was also categories within this, and it was the first con back in Thunder Bay after COVID, so everyone was kind of back. It was a great competition.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I have this, guys. Is that this is the one that I competed in. However, I have been in another competition. I'm not sure if you remember this, Avera. Forged in Foam. Do you remember Forged in Foam? That was, I think, I was actually where I met you,
Yeah, that was
and it was where I met actually a whole bunch of people, which is it lends to what you're saying, which is all of a sudden you're dumped into a concentrated room of your peers, or in some cases, people who are much better at you than your craft. I was in there with I was competing against CJ Prop Studio, Fred Cosplay, Anti Free. Like
Willow.
I was like
You were there.
Willow. I there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, there was the competition was stiff, and I remember going. I remember kind of being in that room, and I was Instagramming everyone as we were talking, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
You did great.
However, sorry.
You did great. It was
Oh,
amazing.
thank you. I appreciate it.
It was.
However,
He made like
yeah,
it was like a switch.
yeah. It was, but again,
Time it right.
the best part about that though was I've followed and I've been acquaintances of all of these people. In fact, friends. Like I'm me and the Geeks and Co guys. I met JS for the first time on that show,
Yep.
um, and have been great friends ever since. But the best part about it is suddenly I had all of these people who were peers who I could look up to, and since then, I've done this. Like it's one of those I can look back and go, that was a moment where all of a sudden I was put into another category of people, or into another community of people that were better than I was. In my opinion, they were better than I was. But since then, because iron sharpens iron, I've gotten so much better.
It is.
And I agree with what you said before, which I think your judging was fantastic. It was really cool to be able to talk to you guys, while I was building, and B, afterwards, when you guys explained kind of, some of the things when you were asking about the different pieces that we were making. A little bit of background, actually, I should probably explain. So it was an online competition with a bunch of foam crafters, and the idea was we were given like an hour to build something out of foam, given a prompt. So it was very much like Forged in Fire. If someone's ever seen like the blacksmithing show, it was that, but for foam crafting. And we had to make it was like a weapon, I think. It was like it was some sort of zombie weapon.
A weapon that would be used in the upside down.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was the upside down because because Stranger Things was still big then. It was a fantastic, like, didn't think I went in and I just assumed I wasn't going to win, but I was going to do my best and I was going to have fun. But I was also, then I looked back and I actually watched the video afterwards, and I was paying attention to all the other people, because you guys were swapping in and out of the cameras to the different live streams. And I could pick up things going, oh, that's interesting how they did that. Oh, Fred did this. Oh, CJ did, like, it was so cool to see. And then since then, I've had Josh on from CJ Props on So You Want to Be a Cosplayer about foam crafting. Yeah. We've had great discussions. He's helped me with my big project that I'm working on right now with electronics. Being able to get the resources that are friendships and peerships is a fantastic thing that came about from competing for the first time. Yeah. And so even if you're not, like you're saying, like we're both saying, not that you shouldn't try and do your best and try and win, because that's something I think you should do in a competition, but also come in with the humility of, there's probably someone better than me that I just haven't met yet in my community that's at this level. But B, go into it going, I'm also going to learn. I'm also going to make friends. I think that's also very important as well.
Most of my best friends in cosplay have come from the backstage. Whether they were my judge or whether they were a fellow competitor. I mean, I can, behind me, not the son, but those two have competed. They never really won anything big. But I can like list the people that I met, when I competed with that costume. Like, they're littered with people who are now a friend and who are way better than me and way bigger names. And, I've learned so much from them, whether it be how to judge or how to craft or just, how to be a, better twerker. And to me, that's the most important part, because and I look, in kind of going the opposite way. I don't look at people like, well, they're not as good as me, right? Like, to me, it's a room of like-minded people. We all like the same weird thing, because of the 1% of the world that cosplays, there's 1% of them who make their own costume, and of those people, 1% compete constantly, right? So it's a very small niche world, and it's one of those things where it's like we're kind of the only ones. We should just be a happy family and help each other and lift each other up. But anybody who says that it's a toxic, environment has really just been in the wrong contest. And it's probably a little local con where there was some shenanigans going on, because that's what happened. I could tell you this, people are like, well, all the judges. So I was like, yeah, unfortunately, right? Like, crap. I wish I didn't, because they've already seen my work in progresses. They already know how I do things. They already know where I cut corners. They're already looking for that, and they're going to judge me. And if I just walked in with a costume they hadn't seen yet and had they've already watched me like building this for the last 2 years. Like,
right.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
they already have been looking at, they know what the seams look like, right? So there's no element of surprise either. It is a small knit community, but I promise
Hmm.
you, no judge in their right mind. There is nothing for me to elevate a friend. Um, I will not usually recuse myself as a judge if I know the person, because I probably wouldn't be able to judge a contest in Florida if I did that, because I literally know
I was wondering where this was going. I was like, oh no, because you know everyone. Oh
I
right, yeah,
it's like
that makes more sense.
I just wouldn't be able to function.
Yeah.
But I will, if if there's a particular like a closeness, and usually I draw the line like, you've been to my house.
Mm.
Like there was a competitor at MegaCon who I'm going to be in their wedding. That's a pretty stick line, right? So I will still go through the judging process, because they
Yeah.
deserve to be judged by three judges, and they deserve
Hmm.
feedback later from three judges. And I'm
Hmm.
capable of being impartial. Um, but when it came to deliberation about where we were putting them in, as far as like yes, no for placement, I didn't say anything. And that's
Hmm.
usually kind of how it works, where it's like, okay, like I just, if you want this person to be first place or second place, we can kind of have that talk. But if they're not,
Hmm.
here, then that's fine. Like I just don't. You just kind of like don't push. And it's more for optics. I think I would probably be able to handle it. But
Hmm.
I'm in your wedding next month. It's just one of those things where it's like, but I promise. I know a lot of people think that there's like favoritism and nepotism, and there really isn't. Like, uh,
Hmm.
oh well, you didn't win because they're friends with so and so.
Yeah.
No, like, you know, trust me, that did not happen. Or, what's the one where it's like there's a thing going on where it's like only women win. It's like, no, Matthew, two. He's got the crown on his head. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Or only sewing wins, or only armor wins, or all of these like things that go on. It's just not
Hmm.
true. Like, come to a big con, go into a big craftsmanship show. It is not what you think it is.
Hmm. Well,
We
that's
are
good to know. I think it's definitely a big, um, even like for me, being nervous about going into a competition that's a bigger con, because obviously, well, not obviously, the competition I went in, it was accidental. I was buying my ticket in to get into the con.
and someone was
And
like,
the wonderful ladies was like, "You're competing, right?" And I was like, "I don't know." And they're like, "You're competing. Come with me." And then like went and met the judges, and
yeah,
it was this whole like kind of whirlwind of like, I guess I'm competing
yeah,
now. And so it was a complete accident. But going in and planning, it's definitely that nervousness of eh, the question of am I good enough. I think you're kind of answering, which is just because you don't think you're good enough doesn't mean you can't actually have fun, meet phenomenal people. B, see, you might actually place higher than you expected because you don't know. You haven't been in a competition, like you're saying. Um, there's you're put into a room full of your peers, but within that room there are spectrums of skill,
oh yeah,
and you wouldn't know where you fall in that spectrum, um, unless you're in that room yourself, because everyone is self-deprecating. I find there's either like online you're either self-deprecating, and I'm guilty of that myself. I mean, my foam
yeah.
crafting 101 series, I in my intro I couldn't just have a I'm going to show you foam crafting 101. I had to put the caveat of like I'm not a master foamsmith. Because I had to have that. However, when you put into a room full of your peers, you can actually kind of go, where can I do better, and where can I go? I've kind of nailed this part, which is good. I don't have to worry. Like painting, for example, in this one, everyone talks about the painting. I mean, you mentioned
I
it,
did.
and before the
I
video,
love
you mentioned the painting.
Yeah, I love that decision that you
Yeah,
didn't
and I
overly
was
over
like, yeah, it was a uh I chose random paints at Michael's. It was like their artist loft. It was the lowest grade, and I just went. I just like the color. I'm not going for anything bold or punchy or whatever. I just wanted metallic purple and green from the comic books. That's kind of what I was going for. And yet, everyone's said the color on this is fantastic. And in my mind, I go, okay, I don't really have to worry about second guessing myself on the color wheel anymore. Like when I look at the colors and I compare them, and I go, yep, I like where I'm sitting at. I can trust that that decision is a good decision.
Yeah.
Which I think someone can definitely benefit from, because if you're so worried about a phase A or like a level 1 skill, say, I'm just going to throw levels at like a terminology. There's not actually levels, but if you're so worried about this skill and you're worried about it and it keeps you from moving on, that will keep you from moving on, which is a real shame because you can progress.
Right.
Which I think is important
too. Like I have friends who are way more talented than me,
mm-hmm.
who are gods of cosplay, who I've placed over at a con,
Mm-hmm.
and it also matters on what you bring that day. Like, not I don't bring I compete a lot. Not everyone's a banger. Not everyone's really great. Some of them, and everybody's that way. Like, oh, together. I'm working on this one for 2 years. This level will be uneven, and you still have an equal shot. Like it
Mm-hmm.
also matters the thing that you did that's really and might really like be crazy to the judges, right? The
It could be
plague bringer
character, it
back
could be
there.
style.
He's plague bringer back here. He's not the most crazy dude, but his cape, which you can't see, is all vacuum formed faces, which is
Ooh.
just weird, right? No one does that, right? So that guy over, and it's going to kind of go, oh, okay, well, that's kind of crazy, right? Or,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a vacuum formed dragon thing on the chest there, which there's like 15,000 scales on it or whatever. Sometimes just because someone's more talented than you doesn't mean they're guaranteed to win either, right? Dragon Mercy, I made her for me. I didn't make her to compete with, but I didn't have anything, so I competed with her, and I think I got like a judge's choice, and I was like, wait, like, whoa, really? All right, like, because I didn't make the helmet. I just sanded it and whatever. So it, like, the biggest piece of it, in my opinion, wasn't even like made by me. I just sanded and painted it, and she's good.
Was it 3D
Good.
printed?
Yeah, it's 3D printed.
Okay.
But I didn't make her originally to be a competition piece. So I didn't have that in mind. But I was like, oh,
I get it. I get it.
I as well. And then I was like, all right, judge's choice, rock on, and someone came up to me and was like, I can't believe I can't believe I won. And I was like, oh no, I knew you were gonna win. Like, I knew you were gonna win. How did you not know you were gonna win? I had you picked from the time I walked in the room. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter how big their name is or how talented they are. It also just matters on what you're showing up in too. So
I was going to mention that and go, just because, I knew who the judges were going to be at this con, because they were pretty much the only two outside of me, because I was a newcomer, and so I wasn't like a Thunder Bay, cosplayer. I knew they were going to be the judges because they were the two big ones there.
Mm-hmm.
They were the two kind of the names. They grew up and they did cosplay there. That doesn't mean though that if you're in a city and there's a really big cosplayer there who has tons of followers and gets lots of attention, it doesn't mean they're going to win every competition in that city at every con. Yeah. Just because they have a lot of followers online, and I know in today's world that means so much, right?
I can tell you, as a judge, I have never gone to a competitor's Instagram to look at how much. As a judge, I don't care. I really don't. I'm literally only looking at the costume itself in that moment. And my phone is, I take hundreds of pictures while I'm prejudging somebody. I ask questions. I go through your build book as much as I can. Again, that's just a book of for people who don't know that term, it's a book of documentation.
Please.
About how you made your book. Usually heavy, low in text. Assume that the judges understand basics, like I use contact cement. You don't have to get there, but it's usually to highlight things that you can't see. Like a lot of times, because I do circuitry or wiring, I will add that in because you can't like take off my thing, and you can't. I got to undo my actuators to see how I rig them, right? So, or if you're doing sewing, all your underpinnings, how your petticoat looks, stuff like that, you're going to want to put that in there. Anything you did that's unique or weird, like vacuum forming faces, you want to do that. Anything that was exceptional, you're going to want to show that. And it's just kind of like for us to reference stuff. So a lot of times in judging, especially like we kind of flip through it, we can't really read it in detail. But when we're down to the end and we're going back and forth on two different contestants, they come out, right? And it's like,
Hmm.
did he say that he 3D printed his own buttons? Let me go check. Oh yeah, he 3D printed his own buttons. Did he do his own dials though? Did he? So that's kind of where that comes in. People get stressed out about bill books when they're new. Don't just put some pictures on a paper and print it out. Like, that's
I was,
no one's
I've.
won or lost on a build book, right?
Okay, well,
But
that's good to know. I didn't actually know
I
that. I thought
think
that was
the
part of the
number
like
one
a
thing
critical piece.
put into a build book that most people forget to do, like if you don't know what you're like, if you don't know how to, a couple pictures about some stuff that you did, and then some good reference photos. Like a 8x10 glossy of the character you are would be phenomenal, especially if you're trying to do a mashup, right? Like some sort of
Yeah.
sketching and drawing of like what you were going for, because with costuming, it is about understanding your decisions. You should be making intentional decisions. Why you chose
Hmm.
that fabric, why you chose to do it this way. If we don't know why you chose it, because we don't have a real good picture of and we have our phones, so we're pulling up the character if we don't know. But don't assume the judges know the characters at all.
Hmm.
There's a lot of weird stuff out there, right? Or it's like the Sakizo, and you're like, okay, which one? And you're like, oh, so I mean, a really nice reference photo. And if you are doing a mashup, I highly recommend getting someone to digitize your ideas for you so that it's pretty clean and we can see what you were going for. Because with mashups, which are taking two things and mashing them together, yeah, you could basically go, you can do anything, and that kind of is against what costuming is. We want you to be held to a standard, right? So, but yeah, build books aren't scary. Prejudging is usually a really positive experience. Backstage is the best, and at the worst case scenario, you're gonna get that moment on stage, and everyone's gonna love it and clap for you and
Yeah.
cheer for you. So
Yep.
you're gonna walk away. You should walk away feeling good about it. Um,
I can
the
tell you
kind
right now that I did not get the loudest applause when I went on stage for that for the
I can
first
always
time.
tell who's gonna get the
Like
loudest
it's
applause.
yeah.
I can go through and go. I know exactly who the guy on stilts with the giant war glaives, the chick in the transforming dress, and the person who's a giant cat bus. Right? Like I know who's going to be the big crowd fan favorite. Right?
Hmm.
Sometimes they're the winner too, and sometimes they're not. It's one of those things where it's like sometimes the thing that looks, as an audience member or as someone who's new to it, just know that it might look underwhelming, but it might take techniques that you just don't know yet. Assume at anything that's like not a little tiny small con, that the judges know what they and get into that conversation, right? Get into the conversation with other crafters so that you can start to say, how did you make this? Go up to the winner and take a really close look, because usually then, rather than like talking smack, usually then you could start to really get an idea of what it is.
I agree.
um
Yeah.
yeah, and before, I know we're running out of time, but I have this one thing to tell people who want to get started in craftsmanship contests, the novices: do not lie to the judges.
Mm.
I we know. We know. And we won't say anything. We'll just smile and nod, but
Hmm.
we know. I have been told before that is a corset, like, and I have some judges that I judge with a lot, and we get really funny. And it'll be like, "Did you make your corset?" And she'll be like, "Yes." And you're like, and we'll just go, and he'll just go behind her and he'll flip the tag up that's behind her. The tag is on the corset, like you're just like, all right, be honest. I've
Yeah.
been told some crazy stuff, right? Like we're dumb, like, oh, Casey Jones walks in. What did you make? The first thing is like, usually it's something along this line. It's like, okay, are you okay with us taking pictures of you? Are you okay with us getting close to you and touching your costume and before we get started? And then we say, okay, tell us about your process and what you made. And the first words out of Casey Jones's mouth was, "I made my jeans." And we were like, so this is
That's
always
impressive.
this is a fun one. So what kind of sewing machine did you use to make these jeans? And he's like, oh, it's just a regular sewing machine. What kind of stitch did you use? A zigzag stitch. It's like, wow, wow. Or and then he proceeded to tell me that he made the golf bag, and I was like, do you really want to? Do you really want? It's a Callaway golf bag. Do you mean like you distressed it and you like weathered it? You
Yeah.
upcycled
Yeah.
it? No, I made it from scratch. I was like, that. I'm not even mad. Like, I'm not even mad at the guy. Like, he just went for it. But we all know, and I've lied before as a novice. I said I made my
Mm.
bodysuit, and I am sure to this day that those judges knew that I did not make that bodysuit. Right? So just don't do it. It's something that
Mm.
usually happens when you're first starting out. You think you can pull one over, but I assure, like, even to the point where it's like, yes, I mean, there are people who have fooled high level judges, but they have to put in the work to be able to talk about the costume intelligently.
Sure.
It
Sure.
probably will take as much time and effort to be knowledgeable enough to fool a high level judge as it would to just do it,
Just to
you
do
know?
it.
Um, but yeah, like, or it's like, oh, Thor's hammer. And I was like, that's a Marvel Legends hammer. And he's like, no, 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 I made it. I'm like, what is it made of? He's like, foam. I'm like, foam.
You just tap it.
I was like, why is it clear? I'm like, why is the light passing through it? He's like, I'm like, is it plastizote? And he's like, no, it's just regular EVA foam. I'm like, how did you seal it? He's like, Plasti Dip. I was like, bruh, really? Come on, man. Like, just don't lie. Even about
No.
little things, it's not even worth it. I would rather you tell me, and again, to the point where I don't, did you make your 3D your 3D print files? At a master's level, I expect that. I don't expect it from
Mm.
a novice. I don't. And if you say yes, and then I ask you what you used, what program you used, and you say Photoshop, we're not going to go far, right? So I
Right.
would. Whereas you might have had a chance to win. Now it's like I can't trust anything else that you said about this costume because I know
Yeah.
you didn't make your blender file. You did your 3D files in Photoshop.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there is a way. I could be completely wrong, but usually, and that's the
You
other
can
thing
fool
too.
me. That's why I don't
I
judge.
don't I don't know. Well, usually there's a sewist and a 3D print FX expert. Usually when you go to the higher levels, there's an armor person, a sewist, and someone who kind of has like mixed media, usually like a 3D printing, leather work, mold making kind of person, usually beside you. I
Hmm.
won't judge a contest at that level without a complimentary judging team. Like
That's
it
good.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
fair. I mean, I could do a lower level contest, right? Or not lower level, but like a smaller one. I
Hmm.
know good sewing from bad sewing. When we're
Hmm.
talking about qualifying for the crown championships, like I can tell good from bad, but I don't actually sometimes can't decide good from exceptional, if that makes sense. Like
That's a good way of putting it.
I can tell I can see if it's good or bad, but like
Hmm.
understanding satin stitching on this particular kind of fabric is extremely difficult. I might
Hmm.
not pick up on that, so I have to have some. And the same thing. Most people who are sewists would say the same thing. I need an armor person in here, because it looks really armor can always look really cool, and it might not actually be that difficult what they did, right? Like,
Mm.
it's pretty, like, but what they, or something where they've really done something exceptional with the paint job or something like that. They might not be able to pick up on that. So it's always important to, and that goes when you're starting out in cosplay, when you're starting out in competitions, start to look and make sure who they're picking for their judges.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, nothing against celebrities, but if you are trying to be a craftsman and you're trying to enter a craftsmanship contest and there is a model and a celebrity, don't go. Just don't. It's going to be a bad experience. It is. I can guarantee it. They might get it right, they might not, but it's literally rolling the dice. They don't have the the experience to be able to judge those people. So just don't put yourself through that. Enter the runway and just have some fun, right?
I was gonna say, I think that the runway might be the only exception where
Yeah,
if
the
you're just
runway.
going for fun and there's
Yeah, it's
no,
super fun.
crap room,
I
and
mean,
yeah.
I pick people because they did a backflip at the runway, right? Like, oh, okay, backflip, dude, right? Like, I mean, that's just kind
Yeah.
of how, as long as, and I tell the contestants too, like, show your stuff because all we're picking on is basically the overall appearance of your costume and what you do on stage. So rock it,
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just really important that, you just understand what you're getting into and set your expectations, and then you're going to have a fun time. But I promise you'll have fun. Unless you don't.
I think it's
Yeah.
I find it's what I feel like I should tell people, and again, it's I've done a runway. Essentially, what I've done is a runway.
Yeah.
I still think it's worth telling people just do it once. If because then you've done it once. For me, it's sort of it kind of goes back to tattoos, which is I understand tattooing is not for everybody. I still will tell people just get one because then you've done it, and you can officially say not for me, not at all for me. I'm not interested, or you're gonna go, it's not that bad.
Or they're gonna say, "I loved this."
Or, oh yeah,
costume. I think forever. Yeah.
Going back to the very beginning, I think you made a very good point, and this is something that I've heard cosplayers talk about as if they're trying to like go anti-attention seeking. If you're in a cosplay, it's okay to feel good that people are paying attention to your costume.
Yeah, I hate that.
You know what I mean? Like, and you, it's okay also if you don't get attention to feel a little bummed about it because you did put a lot of work, and it is a showcasing. It's a show. It's a performance that you're putting on, even if you don't act.
I can't. The whole like modesty stuff. It's like, come on, bro, come on. You're dressed up like a giant cartoon character walking around a public place. You mean to tell me that you don't want attention? Get out of here.
Yeah. Oh, some of the best.
Hours. You spend 500 hours scaling a costume, right? Like, get out of here. You don't want attention. Of course you do, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it just pick your attention, right? Like, I don't care. A lot of my costumes, some of them do because I do big armor builds, right? Like, so my Xeno Jiva for Monster Hunter World, which was the one that got Best Masters at Dragon Con, I'm like 6'1" in it, and it's giant, and it's a man's costume. It's a man's proportions. So like people always think I'm a dude, and it's got giant wings. Of course, it gets attention, right? But a lot of my costumes really kind of don't get very much attention, and we're just as much work, right? Or if not more. So I pick my attention. I would rather get attention from like the crafters, right? And I'm like, if I walk by a crafter and they're like, hey. I'm like, yeah, but like maybe Sally, and her son think that She-Ra is white Wonder Woman, and that's okay. But if you want like the normie attention, are you like golden white Wonder Woman? I'm like, for you, I am today, right?
Yeah, yeah. But 100%. I've told this story a couple of times. My first time going to Fan Expo last year, I was wearing Goblin, and I had gotten through the first like the ticketing and the bag checking, and I could hear people talking about it because Goblin's not a very common character,
right? Goblin's gonna slay.
Right? Goblin. Well, I didn't know. I knew he was going to be popular. I knew people were going to like him because not many people cosplay him. Right. I literally had seen one Green Goblin cosplay in the day before that I went, and it was a 5-year-old with like a toque as the face thing, and her face paint was green, and she had a little pumpkin balloon that was floating in front, and that was adorable. But that was the only Goblin I had seen. I was going down the escalators to the second floor, and as I was going down, the Spider-Man. There's a big group of Spider-Man because and he just does this. He just goes like this, and then he points at me, and I point at him, and then he just like does this, and then that was it. And that immediate like that adoption into that community was amazing. Didn't expect it. I knew people were going to like it because he's not a common character, but I was not expecting the outpour of love that I have that came for this guy. But it
I
was
mean,
part
that's
of
the
the,
way
I
it is.
bet people are going to dig this because,
That's
like,
the way it
you
is.
know.
That's the way it goes. Like I was at MegaCon this year. I was guesting, but I wore Warhammer Mercy, which is a mashup, and people would walk by and be like, "Wow, that armor is really amazing. What are you?" But I put, and this is like a costume I worked on over 2 years. I put like thousands of hours into it. And
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
wore Sun back there from Five Nights at Friday, which I think I might have put a week into. And I couldn't move in that one. Like it's just what's popular, what people are going to recognize, what the kids are into.
Hmm.
If you're a giant huggy wuggy right now, you're going to slay, right? If you're a sister of battle, from Warhammer, you probably
Yeah.
not. But the people who know that that's hard to make and are going to be like,
Exactly.
yeah. So
No, and just kind of like before we wrap up, but yeah, I had a friend who wants to get into cosplay, and she was talking about like, but I don't want to do something that like no one's gonna know. And I said, don't worry about that.
yeah,
Make the costume, go to the con, and I promise you,
someone's going to know.
the person who you made, like that, you're gonna make that costume, and there's gonna be someone who knows what that is and is gonna point you out and go, I love your costume.
Right.
But you can't plan for that.
No.
I didn't plan to get mobbed by Spider-Man for the rest of the day when I
No.
had this guy. I had no idea. I had a guess. Like, it'd be cool if a Spider-Man came up to me and,
Right.
like, engaged with me a little bit.
Well, that's
Did
the
not
thing too,
plan
is that it's like,
on...
you do what's really popular. I do a lot of Overwatch, and even
Mhm.
back in the day when I did Overwatch, it was like you were mobbed when it was really popular.
Mm,
Now I don't. It's not popular anymore, really. But
yeah.
you get the one guy who loves Mercy and runs
Yep.
across the floor to find you because nobody
Yeah.
else does this anymore. That's just as cool too, right? Like,
Oh,
that's just
100%.
and my big mom, One Piece is going the opposite way. It used to be I would be big mom and there'd be the one guy. The one guy who was like, "Big mom," and I'd be like, "Mugiwara," nobody knew
Yeah.
what we were. And now it's like One Piece is like become so big that it's like going
Yeah.
the opposite direction. So it's like it's you're either gonna be really important to one person or you're gonna not be able to move. But it's worth it either way. Both are just as good. So
And it's going to sound very wishy-washy, but the most important thing is that it's made for you. You're doing the cosplay because you want to do it. You're having fun making it. You think the character is cool or whatever.
it's very
Um,
hard to put 200
but
hours into some, or 300 hours into something you don't like.
100%,
Even if you
100%.
just, sometimes I just like the aesthetic. Like I just like the Monster
Oh
Hunter
my goodness, yeah.
aesthetic, even though I don't really play Monster Hunter.
Hmm.
But you have to like something about it, right? Like you have to, because by hour 300, it's gonna be kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore. You're gonna give up. You're gonna not want to. You're not gonna want to wear it. When you put
Hmm.
on that costume, that is the culmination of so many hours of work or so much money invested. Either way, it's some kind of an investment.
Hmm.
You should be excited, right? Not just
I
by
agree.
how good it looks, but like I'm this character today. Like, yes, this is everything I wanted. Like, let's do this,
Hmm.
right? And if you don't have that connection to the character, some people can do it. Some people do. I know a lot of people who don't even know. They just pick the costume because of the difficulty level to compete in, and they make it work. But for me, I kind of
Mm.
need to at least have something, you know, that's going to keep me going. But
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
we could probably talk
Uh,
forever, but it is Mother's Day, and I kind of probably
yeah,
should go pay attention
no,
to my family.
absolutely. So yeah, no, I just want to recap real quick because I think we've talked about some really good stuff. When it comes to cosplay competitions, as we've said before, it's not a necessity. You do not don't feel left out if you're not into competing. However, if you do want to compete, some things to consider: research the kind of competition, whether or not it's going to be genre based, whether or not it's going to be the runway, the skit based, or craftsmanship. That's pretty important, especially for me because I don't like even I didn't know, and I've feel like I'm pretty aware of the cosplay community, and apparently I'm still
Learning
missing
something
chunks, which
every
is
day. Yeah.
one of the best parts about these discussions with people is I get to learn so much. Um, Second of all, kind of look into your peer group at the time. Maybe go to some smaller cons and just kind of see if there's people that are competing there. Kind of see their level of work. If you want, like if you feel not brave enough, but if you feel comfortable enough, maybe go up and talk to the people who won at a con and go, "Hey, can I take a look at your costume? How'd you do this? How'd you do that?" Learn from the people around you. And then ultimately, when you enter the competition, go in for fun, go in for meeting the people that you're going that you're going to meet there. From what I gather, me and you agree, which is go in expecting to not win, and that way you don't have that massive heartbreak if you don't win. However, it is okay to feel bummed if you didn't win. I think that's also just as important to say. But then strive to be better. Learn from it, right?
Your husband, vent about it to your handler, get into your, little circle group chat and go, I got robbed. That's fine.
Yeah.
Y'all have those emotions. Don't go on Facebook and then go off about getting robbed, though. Like like I said, it's a small community, and you do it once, and I swear to gosh, I'm gonna get sent it. I don't care if you're attending Kansas City Tri-Valley Comic-Con of the Sacred Heart, which has like 7 people in it. If you take to Facebook and start complaining about it, I'm going to get sent that, because that's just you see what so and so said. It's like, who is so and so? Like, oh. And I always say the same thing. That is an interesting choice, because I get the emotions. I've been there. I'm not going to judge you on how you feel, but I think it's an interesting choice on how you went about talking about it. So
how you reacted to it, yeah.
Yeah. Again, my husband gets an ear for about 3 hours. Usually it's like, how long will it take me to get from backstage to the bar to get a glass of wine? And it's usually after I have wine, then I'm just like, okay, we're good.
We're good. We're fine.
Yeah, like my disappointment is about maybe 20 minutes. I cycle really fast.
Sure.
Stages of grief. And then I start.
Well, especially if it's someone who it's their one competition of the year. You've mentioned that you do a bunch and you judge, and you've done years where there's tons of competing and tons of judging, and there's some years where you're not doing as many. If it's your one competition, if it's like, for example, in Alberta only has 2 cons. Right. Those are 2 competitions you have without traveling.
And some people have access to a lot more cons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of where we live and stuff like that. So I totally understand it. But you know what? You can compete the same costume more than once, and I highly recommend it. Go get feedback on what, and ask. I've never as a judge not told somebody honest feedback about what they can do to improve their costume. I won't tell you what other people did and why we chose someone else, or I won't talk about anyone else's costume, but I will tell you honestly, like, what I saw that were dings, what I saw that maybe was a little bit sloppy, or a decision that seemed to make sense with the character, a technique that might not have been as well executed as it should. Fix it up and take it back the next year. There's usually hardly any rules where you can't compete something that hasn't won again. So,
well, there we go, guys. I hope you guys were encouraged. Thank you, Avera, for popping on and taking the time on Mother's Day of all days. So again, I really appreciate it. I'm sure the people watching will.
I'm not around my kids. It's very lovely, actually.
Well, I'll stop. I'll let you get back to your crafting then. You have a link tree, I believe, right? But please still tell everybody where we can find your stuff. Is there somewhere that maybe we can put some money in your pocket if we see you? No? Okay.
Don't do that. This is my hobby. I used to try to like monetize this a long time ago. I don't know. This is my hobby. I do it for fun. I do it out of the love for it.
Cool.
If I make enough to on guesting and stuff like that to pay for foam, I'm good. But you can follow me. Usually Instagram is the biggest platform that I'm constantly posting on. So it's Avera_Cosplay. It's like a little it's that back there is my little logo. And then I am on TikTok. You might get a post once a month from me on the Clock app. Facebook, I don't even know. I don't go there. And Twitter, I think I have one. I might have posted this year. So go to Instagram. But another thing, if you ever have any questions, anybody, I do my absolute best to make sure I answer and talk to everybody that reaches out to me. So if you have like a question, hey, you said this build book thing, but I'm not quite sure. I will definitely help anybody get started. Yeah, I'm always here to chat. So
Yeah, same here. So with that, I think we're gonna end it. Y'all know I can't. That's my ending. So thank you again.
I always
Have a
like
good
to
rest of your day, guys.
thank you. Bye.
Bye. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more cosplay